He was told he was not good enough for Power 5 football, and it showed for a long time. Coming out of Arlington, Tennessee, Kenneth Walker had no Power 5 offers for most of his high school career. He wasn't even a top 100 player in his own state, and his only Power 5 offer came late from Wake Forest. From there, he went there and proved everyone wrong and decided to transfer to Michigan State. This was one of the least talked about transfers of the offseason, but it ended up becoming the most important transfer in 2021. Since he has become a Spartan, he's rushed for over 1,000 yards, has become a superstar for the Spartans, and now will likely bring home the Heisman Trophy. He's the best running back in college football, had one of the best performances we've ever seen against Michigan, and has a story that is just too good to be true. In today's video, we're going to talk about the rise of Kenneth Walker, go through his crazy college career so far, and why I think he could be a superstar at the next level as well. But before we get into today's video, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed, and I know we could do better than that, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for the algorithm, and let me know another topic I could do next. Now, let's get started and talk about Kenneth Walker. In order to understand how Kenneth Walker became a big-time superstar, we need to go back in time. Walker's love for the game of football began at the age of 5 years old, and he said one of his goals was to play in the NFL one day. This is probably going to happen, but at the time, it wasn't great. He was pretty good throughout middle school, but he didn't go to the largest talent-producing school in the area, and his odds of getting there were pretty much zero. He ended up going to Arlington High School in Tennessee and began to become a big-time name in the area. One of his high school coaches said, quote, "He's got a lot of potential. He's just to keep working and never think he has arrived. Those are the guys who typically play well on Saturdays and ultimately get a chance to play on Sundays too." He said, quote, "It's crazy to watch. We know there's something special about him, but so far this year, he's taken it up a notch. Some of those runs he makes, all you could do is smile. It may not be blocked perfectly, but he does what he does and gets out of there." Kenneth Walker ran the ball, caught passes out of the backfield, played a little defense, and even played on special teams. He was a Swiss Army knife for his high school, and it showed on the field. He combined for 1,616 yards and 24 touchdowns as a junior, and then ran for nearly 1,600 yards and 23 touchdowns as a senior. Because of that, he had started to blow up on the recruiting scene, but not necessarily in the Power 5 way. He had some low FBS offers and a ton of FCS offers, and he was going to have a promising high school and college career. He was going to have his school paid for, and all was well. The guy who had finished with nearly 4,000 rushing yards on 7 yards per carry in his high school career was going to play at the FBS level. He decided he was going to commit to Kent State, and on October 18th, 2018, he decided to do that. Just a few weeks later, though, he'd end up getting a call that would change his life. Wake Forest offered a late-stage recruiting visit, and both of Walker's parents unfortunately had to work. He went with Arlington's offensive coordinator that day, and they went on a 19-hour round-trip journey from Memphis to North Carolina. His high school coach said, quote, "Anybody else in my position or our positions would have done the same. I mean, he is really kind of quiet, and I'm not that far off that myself. I do remember talking to him about how he hadn't seen the Appalachian Mountains before, so he thought that was pretty cool." After the recruiting visit, Wake Forest decided to offer him a scholarship, and on November 26th, he decided to decommit from Kent State and officially commit to the Demon Deacons. He said, quote, "It's like a family. You get the best of both worlds with a great education and a high level of football. They're still building the program, and it'll be a great part of that." Dave Clawson was the head coach of the Demon Deacons at the time, and he was known to not sign the greatest recruiting classes, but he was a great evaluator of talent. He had committed to the only Power 5 offer he had in Wake Forest, and his odds of even starting, yet alone the Heisman, were close to zero. There were multiple backs in front of him, and he was only a 2-star recruit according to most sources. According to the source that does matter to me though, on 24/7 Sports, he was a 3-star recruit, the number 143 running back, and the 2,164th best player in the class of 2019. His odds were so low, but he proved everyone wrong. In 2019, Kenneth Walker would come in at the end of the bench, but he'd get an opportunity to play. In their first game on the road against Rice, Walker would actually go off as he carried the ball 9 times for 125 yards and a touchdown. In week 2 against North Carolina, he'd also have nearly 100 yards, and at this point, the freshman had come out of nowhere. He had a touchdown and nearly 100 yards against Elon before he would struggle his next 3 games. Against Boston College, Louisville, and Florida State, he only combined for 17 yards and a touchdown, but he would bounce back at the end of the year. He'd have a solid game against NC State, and then have 113 yards and a touchdown and a win over Duke. Because of Walker's pretty good performance, the Demon Deacons ended up going to a bowl game where they would play against guess who? Michigan State. They'd lose the Pinstripe Bowl 27-21, but Walker had a solid freshman year. He finished with 98 carries for 579 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also caught 3 passes in the receiving game, but more importantly, he was going to be the future of the program. In 2020, things would get super weird, but Walker would be the starting back. In their first game against number 1 Clemson, he went for 19 yards. The following week against NC State, he had a career night. He ran the ball 27 times for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns, and followed it up with over 100 yards and a touchdown in a win over Campbell. Against Virginia, he had 3 touchdowns and 128 yards once again, and also had a score in their upset win over number 19 Virginia Tech. Against Syracuse, he finished with 3 touchdowns, and in their final regular season game on the road against North Carolina, he would finish with 2 more scores. In only 7 games, Walker had 579 yards rushing and a crazy high 13 touchdowns. Because of that, he was one of the top running backs in the ACC, but at a school like Wake Forest, he was overlooked, and he would need to make a change in scenery if he ever wanted to become a big-time running back. Walker would put his name into the transfer portal and eventually decided to go to Michigan State. He had this to say about it. Quote, "I did a virtual tour with Coach Cap, and they showed me the offense and how things work here. After that talk, I ended up talking to Coach Mel Tucker, and I loved the talk he gave me about the culture that's being built here and things like that. I was very interested in that, and I felt like this was the place for me." Walker ended up going to Michigan State, but this transfer wasn't really highly talked about and wasn't huge in the eyes of the public. He ended up joining another 3-star running back and a running back from Auburn by the name of Harold Joyner. Walker was expected to play, but no one really expected anything like this. At least no one else besides him. He said, quote, "Now I'm very confident I'm playing like me. They put a play out there and I can just get at it like that. In January, I feel like I was thinking a lot on the route concepts and everything, but now in camp, I can just go." That would be some foreshadowing, as Michigan State was expected to maybe be a bowl team in year 2 under Mel Tucker, but expectations were not through the roof for either Walker or the Spartans program. He would make his name known in week 1, as in a road win against Northwestern, he ran for 264 yards and 4 touchdowns and immediately put his name on the map. In week 2, he followed that up with a touchdown against Youngstown State, and then in a massive road victory over number 24 Miami, he ran the ball 27 times for 172 yards and also caught a touchdown out of the backfield. This was nuts. He helped them beat Nebraska in overtime in week 4, and then had 3 touchdowns in a win over Western Kentucky. At this point, he was a dark horse Heisman contender, but no one expected the kind of performances he would have down the stretch. He'd have 233 yards and a touchdown in a win over Rutgers, 84 yards in a win over Indiana, and then they had a huge matchup with number 6 Michigan. The Spartans were ranked top 10 for this matchup, and it was going to be the game of the year in the Big Ten so far. In a game in which the Spartans found themselves trailing, Walker put the team on his back as he went for 197 yards and 5 touchdowns, including the go-ahead touchdown midway through the 4th quarter that would give them a 37-33 win over the number 6 Wolverines. At this point, Michigan State football had reached hysteria, and Walker's odds of winning the Heisman were number 1. Michigan State was ranked number 3, but they'd go on the road against Purdue, and the Spartans would struggle. Walker would have 136 yards and a touchdown, but it was not enough as the Spoilermakers won 40-29, and now the hype for Michigan State has fallen off a little bit. Walker has still had an incredible year though, and he deserves to bring home the Heisman Trophy. He's ran the ball 197 times for 1,330 yards and 15 touchdowns. That is nuts when you add in the fact he's averaging nearly 7 yards per carry, and every team knows what he's going to do, and they're trying to scheme around him. Walker, I think, could potentially finish with 2,000 yards if things continue to go his way, and if they can find a way to get to the Big Ten championship. Michigan State football has been so much fun to watch, and so has Walker. He went from a 2-star recruit with no FBS offers to someone who was overlooked at Wake Forest and now a Heisman frontrunner for Michigan State. I'm excited to see how he finishes the year, and he'll be a guy I never forget in college football. I think he deserves to be a first-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, and I think he could be a star at the NFL level if he continues to build upon his skill, athleticism, and his mindset. What do you guys think though? If you're a Michigan State fan, what do you think of this year's team and Kenneth Walker? Who's your favorite running back for the 2022 NFL Draft? And what's a player I could take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section, smash that like button if you want to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.